One of the best things I've done to my Cade Nano tank was to fix 3 hammer corals to the Weir box. Before I did that, the aquascape was far too low and the tank looked half empty. And on my previous tank, I started fixing SPS corals to the back glass to create more real estate when I ran out of space on my rockscape. So today I'm going to do the same thing on my new tank and I'll show you how to do it. To do so then, you will need an algae scraper to clean the back glass, or a credit card will do, a tube of aquarium safe silicone, and a coral mount to hold the coral. Now I sell these coral mounts on my Etsy store, but you can probably DIY something similar fairly easily. The first step then is to clean the area where you'll be placing the coral mounts. It doesn't have to be immaculate, but you do need to do a pretty thorough job because you want the mount to stick to the glass and not any algae. And at this point you have to promise not to judge me for having this much algae on my glass. My rabbitfish is currently in quarantine. Now the frag mount is only about an inch square, but if you clean a large area like I'm doing here, you won't feel restricted in where you want to fix the mount. When I started this, I had a rough idea of where I wanted the mounts to go, but I ended up eyeballing it as I went along and chose a slightly different location. You then put a blob of aquarium safe silicone on the back of the coral mount. Now it doesn't really matter how much you put on, even a small amount will spread across the mount completely when you push it against the glass, but don't be shy with it. If you put too much on, any excess will just squeeze out the side and can easily be cut away when it's dried. You then choose your spot and press the mount in place firmly and hold it steady for 60 seconds. Now it's really important that you don't cut that time short. If you only hold it in place for 30 seconds or less, there's a good chance it'll fall off the next day, but a full minute will ensure it holds firm for good. I did originally try using aquarium safe super glue to do this, but it didn't stick to the glass at all, whereas silicone does so perfectly. And as a Brucey bonus, silicone will even grip underwater, so you don't need to drain your tank to do this. And the only other caveat here is that silicone will adhere to glass, but it won't adhere to acrylic, so check the area you're mounting to is glass before you start. Because the coral mount is very lightweight, it won't fall off at this stage even when you turn your power heads back on, but it won't be strong enough to hold anything else until it sets, so avoid the temptation to put the frag in place now, and instead you'll need to leave it for between 24 and 48 hours for the silicone to completely set. And again, it's really important not to cut this step short, so don't be tempted to add the coral, even only briefly, before the silicone is fully set. Fast forward 48 hours then, and the silicone is now set, so we can put the coral in place. The hole on the coral mounts I sell is 12mm or half an inch, so it will fit almost all frag plug stems, but if you have an unusually fat stem, you'll need to cut or shave it down to fit, and something like a hacksaw or a file will do the job in a few seconds. And to hold the frag plug in place on the mount, you can either put a dab of silicone on the bottom of the frag plug, which will make sure it won't shift around, or you can do what I prefer and put a small cable tie at the back, which you then tighten when the coral is in place. Then all you need to do is put the coral onto the mount, gently pull the cable tie tight, then cut off the excess so it looks nice and neat. And you can easily cut the cable tie off later if you need to pull the coral out in the future to give it a bit of a haircut. Now these mounts sit on flat surfaces, but I also have corner mounts that will sit on any right angle, and which I've used on this tank for the part where my Weir box meets the back of my tank. Now of course the process for fixing them in place is the same as the flat mounts, save that you have 2 surfaces to apply silicone to. And once the silicone is completely set, you'll be surprised at how much weight it can hold. In fact, because of the bond the silicone creates, it's very difficult to remove them simply by pushing down on them. And to prove the point, I got this tin of paint, which I weighed at 3.4 kilos. Then I attached it to a frag mount that had been set for 48 hours using a cable tie. Now I wasn't completely sure this would work given how heavy the paint is, but it held firm, and fortunately for me, it didn't smash my demonstration tank. But you can remove it easily by scraping a blade through the silicone, which is handy if you change your mind on the location. These SPS corals I've put in place will now grow out into a lovely branching pattern and will really fill out the empty area above my central rockwork. And I've chosen corals with complementary colours so they'll really pop and stand out next to each other. And the final benefit is that my hawkfish will now have another high spot to perch on, although they're currently in quarantine along with the rest of my fish, so it'll be a while before I get to see that. Now if I've missed anything or if you've got any questions, let me know in the comment section below, and if you want to see how these get on long term, make sure you like and subscribe, and until next time, happy reefing.